My mom sent a message. "You're cut from the house. We don't trust you anymore." I just wrote, "I'm Kate, 28 years old, a successful financial advisor with a complicated family situation. Last week, my phone buzzed with a message from my mother that shattered everything. You're cut from the house. We don't trust you anymore." After years of managing their finances and lending them $24,000, this felt like the ultimate betrayal. Instead of exploding, I simply replied, "Makes sense," before systematically shutting down their accounts and legally reclaiming what was mine. Their panic was inevitable. If you're watching this right now, I'd love to know where you're from. Go ahead and drop your location in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe to join our community of survivors who've learned to stand up for themselves. Growing up in our modest suburban home in Michigan wasn't easy, but I didn't realize how unusual my childhood was until much later. My parents, Lisa and William, were solidly middle class. Mom taught fourth grade at the local elementary school, and Dad worked as a city administrator. On paper, we should have been comfortable, but money problems shadowed our family like a persistent storm cloud. From as early as I can remember, financial stress dominated our household conversations. Bills piled up on the kitchen counter. Mysterious calls from creditors interrupted dinner, and my parents would have hushed tense arguments late at night when they thought Tom and I were asleep. My younger brother Tom was only 3 years younger than me, but he seemed to float through childhood blissfully unaware of the tensions that kept me awake at night. "Kate, you worry too much about adult things," my mother would say whenever she caught me staring at the stack of envelopes marked "Final Notice." But how could I not worry? The constant fear of not having enough hung in our home like a fog. By the time I was 12, I had started to notice patterns. My parents made decent money, but it vanished quickly. Dad would impulsively buy electronics we couldn't afford, and Mom had a weakness for home decor and clothing sales. They lived as though their next paycheck could stretch to infinity, and when it inevitably couldn't, the cycle of stress would begin again. When I was 15, everything changed. Our furnace died during one of the coldest Michigan winters on record, and my parents admitted they had no emergency fund to cover the $4,000 replacement. That night, I sat at our kitchen table with my parents' pile of bills, a calculator, and a notebook. By morning, I had created a simple budget system and repayment plan that could work if they stuck to it. "Where did you learn to do this?" My father asked, a mixture of pride and something else, embarrassment maybe, crossing his face. "I checked out some personal finance books from the library last year," I admitted. What I didn't say was that I'd done it because I was terrified of our financial situation. My mother examined my neat columns of numbers and frowned. "This says we need to cut our shopping budget by 60%. That's ridiculous, Kate. You don't understand how the real world works. We have responsibilities, appearances to maintain." This became a pattern. My mother, Lisa, had a remarkable ability to make me doubt myself even when the math was indisputable. "You're overreacting," she would say when I pointed out overspending. "This is just what adults do." Or worse, "Are you calling me irresponsible after everything I've sacrificed for this family?" The psychological term gaslighting wasn't in my vocabulary back then, but that's exactly what was happening. No matter how carefully I presented financial facts, Mom would twist my words until I questioned my own perceptions. My father, William, was no help. Though physically present, he was emotionally absent in these battles. "Your mother knows what she's doing," he would mutter before retreating to his workshop in the garage. His conflict avoidance meant he defaulted to supporting Mom, leaving me isolated in my concerns. Despite this lack of support, my aptitude for numbers and financial planning only grew stronger. When I was 16, I got a job at the local grocery store, working weekends and summers. Every penny I earned went into a savings account for college. My parents had started a college fund when Tom and I were born, but had drained it years ago for emergencies that somehow included a hot tub and kitchen renovation. "You can get student loans like everyone else," Mom said dismissively when I brought up college costs as my junior year approached. "Or scholarships. You're smart enough." There was no acknowledgement that they had failed to save no apology for spending what had been set aside for my future. Meanwhile, Tom's path couldn't have been more different. 2 years behind me in school, he was the golden child, charming, athletic, and completely financially irresponsible. While I worked weekends, he joined expensive travel sports teams that strained our family budget even further. When I suggested he get a part-time job too, my parents acted like I'd suggested child labor. Tom needs to focus on being a teenager, Mom would say. His sports could lead to scholarships. They never did. The double standard was painful but clear. My financial responsibility wasn't celebrated. It was expected. Tom's financial irresponsibility wasn't corrected. It was enabled. This dynamic created a complicated relationship between us. I loved my brother, but his carefree attitude about money, so similar to our parents, frustrated me endlessly. By the time I graduated high school, I had saved nearly $15,000 and secured several academic scholarships. It still wasn't enough for 4 years at my dream schools, so I opted for our state university, commuting my freshman year to save on housing costs. Every decision I made was calculated, careful, focused on long-term financial security that had been so absent in my childhood. My parents seemed almost disappointed by my practical choices. "College is supposed to be an experience," Mom said when I explained my decision to live at home the first year. What she really meant was that my pragmatic approach highlighted their own financial failures. The summer before college, I discovered something that hurt more than I expected. While helping my mother organize some paperwork, I found credit card statements showing thousands spent on Tom's expensive gaming equipment and sports gear, purchased during the same months they had told me they couldn't help with my college application fees. When confronted, my mother's eyes hardened. "You've always been the responsible one, Kate. You'll figure it out. Tom needs more support." In that moment, I realized a painful truth that would define our relationship for years to come. My capability had become my curse. The more responsible I was, the less my parents felt they needed to support me, saving their resources instead for my brother, who had never learned to stand on his own. The day I graduated with my finance degree, I felt a complex mix of pride and exhaustion. 4 years of full-time studies while working nearly full-time had taken its toll. But I had done it. Graduated with honors, debt-free, with a job already lined up at Wilson Financial Partners in New York City. My parents attended the ceremony, of course. They took plenty of photos for social media bragging about their successful daughter. What those posts didn't mention was that they had contributed nothing to my education. Not tuition, not books, not even moral support during late-night study sessions. Still watching them beam with pride as I crossed the stage, I pushed down my resentment. They were my family after all. "We always knew you'd do amazing things," my mother gushed at my modest graduation dinner. "You're so good with money. You get that from my side of the family." I nearly choked on my pasta, remembering all the times she had dismissed my financial concerns throughout my childhood. 2 weeks after graduation, I moved to New York, trading the familiar constraints of Michigan for the dizzying potential of Manhattan. My starting salary as a junior financial advisor was modest by New York standards, but felt like unimaginable wealth compared to how I'd lived during college. For the first time, I could breathe financially. No more calculating whether I could afford both textbooks and groceries in the same week. My apartment was tiny, shared with 2 other recent graduates in a far from glamorous part of Brooklyn. But it was mine, a space where no one questioned my financial decisions or dismissed my concerns. I thrived at work, quickly developing a reputation for being able to explain complex financial concepts in ways clients could easily understand. 6 months into my new life, the first call came from home. "Katie, we're in a bit of a situation," my father said, his voice tight with that familiar stress. "The property taxes went up, and with the new car payment—" I closed my eyes, already knowing where this conversation was heading. "How much do you need, Dad?" "Just 800 until payday next week. We can pay you back right away." I transferred the money immediately, ignoring the voice in my head that whispered they'd never paid back similar loans during my college years. They were my parents. They had raised me. Surely I owed them this much. Next week came and went, no repayment, no mention of the money. When I gently reminded my father during our Sunday call, my mother got on the line. "We're a family, Kate, not a bank," she said, her tone making me feel small and mercenary for even bringing it up. "Is this who you've become in New York, someone who keeps tabs on every dollar given to her parents?" I backed down immediately, apologized, even for making them feel bad. This pattern repeated every few months. Urgent calls about unexpected expenses, promises of repayment that never materialized, guilt trips when I mentioned the growing total. Despite this financial drain, my career continued to flourish. By my second year, I'd been promoted and had moved to a slightly better apartment this time with just one roommate. I met Ryan, a graphic designer with kind eyes and a quiet confidence that drew me in at a friend's gallery opening. Unlike my family, Ryan celebrated my financial acumen rather than exploiting it. "You're amazing with money," he said one night after I'd helped him restructure his student loans to save thousands in interest. "I wish I'd had your skills years ago." While my relationship with Ryan blossomed, the situation back home deteriorated. During a Christmas visit, I discovered my parents were now carrying over $30,000 in credit card debt spread across 8 different cards. "This is serious," I told them after they'd reluctantly shown me their statements. "The interest alone is killing you. We need to consolidate this debt and create a payment plan." My mother started to object, but my father, looking more tired than I'd ever seen him, placed his hand on her arm. "She's right, Lisa. We can't keep doing this." Over the holiday break, I created a comprehensive financial plan for them, consolidating their high-interest debt, creating a realistic budget based on their actual income, and setting up automatic payments to prevent late fees. I spent hours on the phone with creditors, negotiating better rates using skills I'd developed working with clients. "The key is consistency," I explained, showing them the spreadsheet I'd created. "This plan works, but only if you stick to it every month." They nodded solemnly, seeming to truly understand the gravity of their situation for the first time. Before returning to New York, I helped them set up a new banking system with separate accounts for bills, groceries, and discretionary spending. I even added my name to their main account so I could help monitor their progress and provide guidance. For nearly a year, the system worked. My parents made regular payments on their consolidated loan. Their credit scores slowly improved. During our weekly financial check-ins, they seemed grateful for my help. For once, I felt truly valued by them, not just for what I could give, but for my knowledge and skills. Then came the house issues. Their 30-year-old ranch-style home desperately needed a new roof, updated electrical wiring, and plumbing repairs. The estimates totaled just over $24,000. "We can't get another loan with our credit still recovering," my father explained during one of our video calls, "and we don't have enough equity for a home equity line." I knew what was coming before they asked. By this point, I had built up substantial savings and investments. The responsible part of me screamed that this was a terrible idea, that mixing family and large sums of money rarely ended well. But looking at their worried faces on my laptop screen, I couldn't say no. "I can loan you the $24,000, I said finally. "But we need to treat this formally. Interest at 3% monthly payments of $400, everything in writing." They agreed readily, and I drew up a simple contract. I even flew home for a weekend to oversee the start of the renovations and make sure the contractors were reputable. That weekend, I also discovered that my brother Tom had moved back home after dropping out of community college. "It's just temporary," my mother assured me. "He's figuring things out." Tom, now 24, spent most of my visit playing video games and avoiding eye contact. When I asked about his plans, he mumbled something about opportunities in social media before disappearing to his room. I noticed he had a new phone and expensive sneakers despite apparently having no income. I returned to New York uneasy, but tried to focus on the positive. My parents were following my financial plan, their house was being repaired, and I was in a position to help them. I had become their financial safety net, a role reversal that felt both empowering and slightly unsettling. The monthly payments for the house loan arrived consistently for the first 6 months. I began to relax, thinking perhaps we had finally established a healthy financial relationship. Ryan and I moved in together, combining our resources to rent a lovely one-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood we both loved. My career continued to advance as I built a reputation for helping young professionals navigate their finances. What I didn't realize was that back in Michigan, the foundation of trust I thought we had built was already beginning to crack. The first sign that something was wrong came during a routine check of my parents' joint accounts. Several unexpected withdrawals had been made from their bill-paying account. Small amounts, at first $200 here, $300 there. enough to notice, but not enough to immediately set off alarms. When I called to ask about these withdrawals, my mother's explanation came too quickly. Oh, we had to replace the water heater, and then there were some medications insurance wouldn't cover. It sounded reasonable, but something in her tone made me uneasy. In the past, they would have called to discuss any major expenses before touching the bill account. This new behavior felt secretive. That same week, I noticed my texts were being answered more slowly with shorter replies. Our weekly financial check-in calls became briefer with my parents, seeming distracted or eager to end the conversation. When I suggested visiting for a weekend to see the completed house repairs, my mother quickly made excuses about it being a bad time. Meanwhile, my brother Tom had been living with my parents for nearly 8 months with no signs of moving toward independence. During one of our increasingly rare family video calls, I noticed he was wearing a designer watch I recognized from my luxury brand clients. "Nice watch, Tom," I commented casually. "Must have cost a pretty penny." He flushed and pulled his sleeve down. "It's just a knockoff." I knew it wasn't. The distinctive secondhand movement was impossible to fake well. But before I could press further, my mother changed the subject. After the call, I mentioned my concerns to Ryan. "Something feels off with my family. They're being weird about money again, but differently this time." Ryan, who had witnessed the financial dynamics with my family over the past 2 years, looked troubled. "Have you checked the loan repayments recently? The ones for the house repairs?" I hadn't. I realized the payments had been automatic for so long that I'd stopped monitoring them closely. That night I checked my accounts and felt my stomach drop. The last 2 monthly payments had been missed entirely. When I called my parents about the missed payments, my father answered, sounding oddly formal. "We're a bit tight this month, Katie. We'll catch up soon." "Dad, that's not how loans work," I said, trying to keep frustration from my voice. "We have an agreement. If you're having trouble, we need to discuss it and adjust the plan." "Your mother and I feel like we're constantly under financial surveillance," he replied stiffly. "We're adults. We can manage our own money." The irony of this statement was so stark, I almost laughed. "Dad, I've been helping you manage your money for years because you asked me to. What's changed?" "Maybe we're tired of being judged by our daughter," he said, a coldness in his voice I'd never heard before. Tom says, Tom says what?" I interrupted, a sinking feeling in my chest. My father went silent for a moment. "Nothing. Look, we'll get caught up on the payments soon. We've gotta go." The call ended abruptly, leaving me staring at my phone in disbelief. Tom says, what had my perpetually financially irresponsible brother been saying about me? The following week brought another shock. My longtime friend Melissa, who still lived in our hometown, called to ask if everything was okay with my family. "Of course," I said automatically. "Why do you ask?" Melissa hesitated. "It's just, your mom was talking to my mom at the grocery store. She mentioned something about you becoming money-obsessed in New York and trying to control their finances from afar." The betrayal stung sharply. After everything I'd done to help them, the countless hours spent fixing their financial mistakes, the thousands of dollars loaned and given, this was how they portrayed me to others. "Kate," Melissa continued gently, "I know how much you've done for them. My mom does too. But I think Tom has been spreading some stories around town." "What kind of stories?" I asked, my voice tight. "That you're using their financial problems to control them. That you forced them to put accounts in your name so you could monitor their spending. He's even implied you're somehow profiting from managing their money." I felt physically ill. The narrative was so twisted, so opposite from reality, that I hardly knew how to respond. I thanked Melissa for her honesty and sat in stunned silence after hanging up. That evening, I decided to do something I'd never done before. I logged into my parents' email account. We had set it up together when creating their financial system. And I had the password for financial communications, though I'd never used it for anything beyond the agreed purpose. I knew it was a boundary violation, but I needed to understand what was happening. What I found confirmed my worst fears. There were emails between my parents discussing a new car purchase, a luxury SUV they absolutely could not afford. There were communications with a travel agent about a cruise. And most disturbingly, There were multiple emails from my brother Tom to my parents, with subject lines like Kate's control issues and how to get financial freedom back. I couldn't bring myself to read those emails, but their existence alone told me everything. Tom was poisoning my parents against me, and they were listening. The final confirmation came a week later when I discovered my access to their accounts had been restricted. The passwords had been changed. The accounts we had set up together had been modified to remove my oversight capabilities. They hadn't even told me. I discovered it when trying to check whether they'd caught up on the missed loan payments. I felt a complex mix of emotions: hurt, betrayal, anger, and beneath it all, a strange sense of clarity. For years, I had been trying to fix my family's financial problems, while they had been resisting, undermining, and now actively working against me. The pattern was so clear, I couldn't believe I hadn't seen it sooner. That Friday, I took a day off work and flew to Michigan without telling my family. I wanted to see the situation for myself, to have an honest conversation face to face, where misunderstandings could be cleared up. I rented a car at the airport and drove to my parents' house, arriving around dinner time when I knew they would all be home. The driveway held an unfamiliar sight: a brand new black Cadillac Escalade with temporary tags, a vehicle that easily cost $70,000. I sat in my rental car staring at this irrefutable evidence of financial self-sabotage. The house that supposedly needed $24,000 in critical repairs still had the same visibly worn roof. The exterior paint was still peeling, but somehow, a luxury SUV had become a priority. Taking a deep breath, I walked to the front door and rang the bell instead of using my key. My mother answered, her expression shifting rapidly from surprise to something like guilt when she saw me. "Kate, we weren't expecting you," she said, not moving to hug me or invite me in. "Clearly," I replied, keeping my voice level. "Can I come in? I think we need to talk." The dinner that followed was one of the most uncomfortable experiences of my life. My father avoided eye contact, focusing intensely on his plate. My mother made strained small talk about neighbors and weather. Tom glared openly at me between texting on his new iPhone. No one mentioned the missed loan payments, the new car in the driveway, or the changed account passwords. Finally, when I couldn't bear the charade any longer, I placed my fork down carefully. I came because I noticed some concerning things happening with our financial arrangements. The missed loan payments, the restricted account access, and now a new Cadillac in the driveway when the roof still hasn't been replaced. "Can someone explain what's going on?" The silence that followed was deafening. Then Tom snorted. "Here we go. The New York financial genius is here to audit the family again." "Tom," I said evenly, "I loaned Mom and Dad $24,000 for essential home repairs. That money appears to have been spent elsewhere, and now they've stopped making the agreed-upon payments. I have legitimate questions." My mother's face hardened. "We don't appreciate your tone, Kate. We're your parents, not your clients. We don't need to justify our spending to you." "You do when it involves my money," I countered, struggling to keep my composure. "What happened to the roof repairs, the electrical work, the plumbing? That's what the loan was for." My father shifted uncomfortably. "We prioritize differently. The car was a necessity." A $70,000 SUV was a necessity. I couldn't keep the incredulity from my voice. "Dad, your roof is literally falling apart." "You see," Tom interjected, turning to my parents. "This is exactly what I was telling you. She thinks she knows better than you how to spend your own money. Just because she works with rich people in New York, she thinks she can dictate our lives here." I stared at my brother, finally understanding his role clearly. "This isn't about me dictating anything. This is about honoring agreements, about basic financial responsibility." "We've heard enough about financial responsibility from you to last a lifetime," my mother snapped. "Perhaps if you spent as much time calling just to chat as you do checking our accounts and criticizing our choices, you'd still feel like part of this family." Her words hit like a physical blow. Part of this family. I've been supporting this family financially for years. I've given thousands of dollars, countless hours, professional expertise that clients pay hundreds an hour for, all to help you. And you think I'm not part of the family because I don't just call to chat? Tom rolled his eyes dramatically. Always keeping score. Always calculating what you're owed. I turned to look at each of them. These people who shared my blood, but suddenly felt like strangers. I need to know right now, do you intend to repay the $24,000 loan as agreed? Yes or no? My parents exchanged glances, and my mother spoke with a chill in her voice. We'll repay it when we can on our terms. We're not going to be held to some rigid schedule that doesn't account for our needs. I stood up slowly, a calm certainty washing over me. I see. Thank you for making your position clear. I'll be staying at a hotel tonight and flying back tomorrow. As I turned to leave, Tom called after me. That's right, run back to your fancy New York life and your rich boyfriend. We know you think you're better than us anyway. I didn't respond, didn't give him the satisfaction of seeing how deeply his words cut. I simply walked out, got in my rental car, and drove away. That night in my hotel room, I stared at the ceiling, replaying years of financial manipulation and emotional exploitation. I had given and given only to be cast as the villain in their narrative. Somewhere around 3 a.m., a strange sense of peace settled over me. I was done trying to save people who not only refused to be saved, but resented the very effort. The next morning, I flew back to New York without contacting my family again. I had decisions to make and boundaries to establish. I just didn't know that my mother would force the issue sooner than I expected. The following Tuesday evening, as I was reviewing client portfolios in our apartment, my phone buzzed with a text message. A glance showed it was from my mother, unusual as she typically called rather than texted. Opening the message, I felt a strange calm as I read words clearly designed to wound. You're cut from the house. We don't trust you anymore. Don't contact us until you can respect our financial independence. Ryan found me sitting perfectly still, phone in hand, a few minutes later. Kate, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost. Wordlessly, I handed him my phone. He read the message, his expression darkening with each word. They can't be serious. After everything you've done for them, they're serious. I said, my voice steadier than I expected. And honestly, it's clarifying. And for years, I'd been caught in a destructive pattern, continually giving financial support and expertise to people who not only failed to appreciate it, but actively resented me for it. The text message was cruel, but it was also an unintentional gift, permission to finally break free. What are you going to do? Ryan asked, sitting beside me. I took a deep breath. First, I'm going to respond. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard for only a moment before I typed two simple words, "Makes sense." Then I pressed send. Ryan raised an eyebrow. That's it. A small smile played at my lips. For them, yes, but for me, I'm just getting started. The next morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in my career. This situation required my full attention. First, I contacted Samuel Chen, a colleague who specialized in cybersecurity and financial fraud. I need a favor, I explained after laying out the situation. I need to know if anyone has been using my personal information to open accounts or take out loans. Samuel's expertise was exactly what I needed. By lunchtime, he had discovered alarming activity. Kate, your brother has opened 3 credit cards using your social security number and address information. He listed himself as an authorized user. The total outstanding balance is just over $12,000. The betrayal shouldn't have shocked me, but it did. How did he even get my social? Family members often have access to this information, especially if you ever lived at the same address as an adult. Plus, you mentioned you were helping manage their finances. He might have found documents while snooping. Samuel helped me file fraud reports and begin the process of untangling Tom's identity theft. Then I moved on to the next step, consulting with a lawyer about my $24,000 loan. Sarah Goldstein, a law school friend who specialized in financial disputes, agreed to meet me for coffee. Based on what you've described and the documentation you have, this is a straightforward case, she assured me after reviewing the loan agreement. You have a signed contract with specific terms. They've defaulted on those terms. I don't want to sue my parents. I said the words feeling strange in my mouth, but I need to protect myself. Let's start with a formal demand letter, Sarah suggested. It's less adversarial than immediately filing suit, but it establishes that you're serious about recovering the funds. While Sarah drafted the letter, I conducted a thorough audit of all accounts that had my name attached. The results were worse than I imagined. Beyond the fraudulent credit cards Tom had opened, my parents had been systematically draining the joint accounts I had helped them establish. The money that should have been allocated for bills, emergency savings, and loan repayments had been diverted to new accounts I couldn't access. Over $18,000 had been moved in the past 2 months alone, right around when Tom's campaign against me must have intensified. Most disturbing of all, I discovered that the $24,000 loan had never been used for home repairs at all. By accessing the household account records, I could see that only about $4,000 had gone to a contractor for minor fixes. The rest had been divided between the new Cadillac down payment and a series of cash withdrawals I couldn't trace. The betrayal was so complete it left me numb. These weren't just poor financial decisions. This was calculated deception. The people I had trusted most had lied to my face, while taking advantage of my generosity and expertise. With each new discovery, my resolve strengthened. By the end of the day, I had a clear action plan. Send a formal demand letter requiring repayment of the loan within 30 days. 2. Close all joint accounts and remove my name from any shared financial products. 3. Place a freeze on my credit to prevent further identity theft. 4. Document all fraudulent activity for potential legal action. 5. Change all passwords and security questions for my personal accounts. That evening, I executed the plan methodically. First, I closed the joint accounts I had access to and transferred the remaining funds, about $4,000, to a new escrow account my lawyer had established for the loan repayment. Next, I removed my name as an authorized user on all family credit cards and utility accounts. For years, I had maintained this connection to help them build credit and ensure bills were paid on time, no more. I sent formal notifications to all 3 credit bureaus documenting the fraud and requesting alerts on any new account openings. Then I changed every password security question and recovery email for my personal financial accounts. Finally, I drafted an email to send after Sarah's demand letter had been delivered. I have discovered the extensive financial deception you've engaged in, including fraudulent use of my identity, misappropriation of loan funds, and unauthorized account withdrawals. I have taken steps to protect myself financially and legally. A formal demand letter for repayment of the $24,000 loan is forthcoming. Any further communication should go through my attorney, whose contact information is below. It was businesslike, unemotional, treating them as I would any client who had breached financial trust, which I realized was exactly what they had become. Ryan brought dinner home and found me at the kitchen table surrounded by paperwork, but looking calmer than I had in months. "You seem different," he observed, setting down bags of takeout. "I am different," I replied, gathering the papers into a neat stack. "I've spent years trying to save my family from financial disaster while they actively worked against me. I'm done. I've taken back control of my financial boundaries." Ryan smiled, a mixture of pride and relief in his eyes. "So, what happens now?" "Now," I said, closing my laptop. "We wait for the panic to begin." The first frantic call came at 6:42 a.m. the next day. I let it go to voicemail along with the 7 that followed over the next 2 hours. By noon, I had 23 missed calls, 16 voicemails, and 32 text messages. A digital bombardment of escalating emotions from my family. I listened to the first voicemail out of curiosity. "Kate, it's Dad. There's something wrong with the accounts. Call us immediately." His voice was tight with anxiety. The text followed a predictable pattern: confusion, then alarm, then anger, and finally, desperate pleading. "What did you do to our accounts? We can't access our money. This is completely unacceptable behavior. Please, Kate, we need grocery money. This isn't funny." I showed the messages to Ryan, who whistled low. "They really didn't expect consequences, did they? They never have before," I replied, silencing my phone as it began ringing again. By late afternoon, Sarah called to inform me that my mother had been calling her office repeatedly. I explained that all financial matters would now go through me and that the demand letter would arrive tomorrow. She didn't take it well. "I'm sure she didn't. I said, feeling strangely detached from the chaos unfolding. That evening, a different kind of message arrived, a long email from my father, the first communication that wasn't demanding immediate action. Katie, I don't understand what's happening. Your mother is beside herself. Tom says you're punishing us for asserting our independence. Is that what this is about? Control. We're your family. Families help each other without keeping score. Everything we've done has been for this family. Yes, we use some of the loan money for other pressing needs, but we always intended to pay you back eventually. Please call us. This isn't like you. Dad. The email revealed so much about their perspective. They genuinely didn't see anything wrong with their actions. In their worldview, my money was family money available for their use however they saw fit. My expectation of repayment was interpreted as keeping score rather than basic financial responsibility. I drafted several responses, but sent none of them. There was nothing I could say that would bridge this fundamental difference in values. Instead, I focused on moving forward with my own life. 2 days later, the official demand letter arrived at my parents' house via certified mail. That evening, my mother left a voicemail that veered between rage and tears. How dare you send legal threats to your own parents? We raised you, sacrificed for you. And this is how you repay us, by sicking lawyers on us. Tom was right about you all along. You've changed, Kate. New York has turned you cold and calculating. I don't even recognize my daughter anymore. The manipulation was so transparent now that I'd stepped outside its gravitational pull. For years, any attempt to establish financial boundaries had been met with this same emotional blackmail, questioning my character, invoking parental sacrifice, implying I was defective for wanting fair treatment. A week after cutting financial ties, I received an unexpected call from Margaret Winters, my parents' next-door neighbor who had known me since childhood. Kate, dear, I hope you don't mind me calling, she began hesitantly. I'm concerned about what I'm hearing from your parents. They're telling everyone who'll listen that you've stolen their money and frozen their accounts. It doesn't sound like the Kate I know, so I thought I should hear your side. I was touched by Margaret's fairness. Thank you for calling, Mrs. Winters. The situation is complicated, but essentially, I loaned my parents money for home repairs that never happened. And when I asked about repayment, they cut contact with me. I suspected something like that, she sighed. Their new car seemed an odd priority with their roof in such bad shape. And to be honest, your brother has been spinning some wild tales around town. What kind of tales? I asked, though I could imagine. That you've been controlling their finances from New York, taking fees from their accounts, even threatening them. Nobody who knows you believes it, of course. This conversation revealed another layer of betrayal. My family was actively trying to damage my reputation in my hometown. The realization should have hurt, but instead, it reinforced the rightness of my decision to establish firm boundaries. 3 weeks after sending the demand letter, my parents' lawyer contacted Sarah. They were offering to repay the loan at $200 per month, less than the originally agreed $400, over the next 10 years. The proposal would have extended the repayment period from 5 years to 10, and reduced the total amount I would receive due to the time value of money. Sarah advised rejecting the offer, but I saw it as a starting point for negotiation. Let's counter with $350 per month over 6 years. That's still more generous than our original agreement. After another week of legal back and forth, we reached a settlement $300 monthly for 8 years, with the payments secured by a lien on their house. It wasn't the outcome I had originally wanted, but it was a legally binding resolution that protected my interests while giving my parents a manageable payment plan. The first payment arrived exactly on schedule, transferred directly to the escrow account Sarah had established. There was no note, no acknowledgement, just the cold transaction itself. I felt an odd mixture of sadness and relief. The money would eventually be returned, but the trust never would be. As weeks turned into months, I focused on rebuilding my life without the constant drain of my family's financial chaos. I threw myself into my work, earning another promotion. Ryan and I began seriously discussing marriage researching neighborhoods where we might buy our first home together. I also began attending a support group for adult children of financially manipulative parents, discovering I was far from alone in my experiences. The stories shared in that circle helped me process years of guilt and obligation, recognizing patterns that had been invisible when I was caught in the middle of them. 6 months after the settlement, I received the first direct communication from my family that wasn't about money or accusations. It was a brief email from my father. "Katie, your mother wouldn't want me to write this, but I miss you. Things are tight financially since we've had to manage without your help, but we're learning. Tom moved out last month, got a job at the car dealership. I know we handled things badly. I'm not asking for anything, just wanted to say I think about you. Dad." I read the email several times, weighing my response carefully. Finally, I wrote back, "Dad, thank you for reaching out. I miss aspects of our relationship too. I'm glad to hear Tom is working and becoming more independent. I'm not ready for regular contact yet, but I appreciate your email. I hope you and Mom are well. Kate." It wasn't forgiveness, but it was acknowledgement, a small crack in the wall that had formed between us. Whether that crack would widen into a door or seal itself shut again remained to be seen. What mattered was that for the first time, the choice was truly mine. A year after my mother's text message cutting me from the family, my life had transformed in ways I couldn't have imagined. I was engaged to Ryan, had been promoted to senior financial advisor, with my own client portfolio, and had developed friendships that provided the unconditional support my family never had. The monthly payments from my parents arrived consistently now, each one a reminder of both betrayal and resolution. I had stopped checking my hometown social media groups for mentions of my name, no longer concerned with whatever narrative Tom might be spinning. In my support group, I was now sometimes the one offering guidance to newcomers, sharing my journey from financial enabler to someone with healthy boundaries. The hardest part, I would tell them, is accepting that you can't save someone from their own financial choices, especially when those choices are entwined with their identity and ego. The truth was my parents' financial struggles had never really been about money. They had been about control, about maintaining a family dynamic, where I was simultaneously the responsible one and the one who could never say no. Breaking that pattern had required me to weather their rejection, their anger, and their attempts to villainize me. Was it worth it? On difficult days, I still questioned myself. But those days grew fewer as I built a life based on mutual respect rather than obligation and guilt. I had learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do, for yourself and others, is to stop enabling destructive patterns, even when it means being cast as the villain in someone else's story. The journey from that devastating text message to where I stand today has been transformative in ways I never could have predicted. 2 years have passed since I received those words. "You're cut from the house. We don't trust you anymore." Words meant to hurt me, to punish me for daring to establish boundaries, but words that ultimately set me free. At first, the pain was overwhelming. I'd lie awake wondering how the people who raised me could so completely misunderstand my intentions. I replayed years of financial support, of patient guidance, of genuine desire to help them achieve stability. Had none of that mattered? Had they ever really seen me or just what I could do for them? The healing began strangely enough with anger. For someone who had spent a lifetime being the reasonable one, allowing myself to feel righteously angry was revolutionary. I was angry at my parents for their manipulation at Tom, for his sabotage at myself for enabling their behavior for so long. My therapist, Dr. Rivera, helped me understand that this anger wasn't destructive. It was clarifying. Anger tells us when our boundaries have been violated, she explained during one particularly breakthrough session. You've spent years ignoring that signal. With Ryan's unwavering support, I gradually rebuilt my sense of self, not as my family's financial savior, but as Kate, competent, professional, loving partner, loyal friend, woman with inherent worth beyond what she could give to others. The monthly loan payments continued to arrive from my parents, our only remaining connection. I put each one into a separate investment account. watching it grow and thinking of it not as restitution but as the foundation for a new relationship with money, one based on respect rather than obligation. About a year after the separation, I received a surprising letter from Tom. Unlike our parents who still communicated only through their lawyer, Tom wrote directly, "Kate, I've been working at Lakeside Motors for 8 months now. It's nothing fancy, but it's honest work. Recently, I was offered the finance manager position, but I don't know enough about loans and credit to do it well. I know I have no right to ask you for anything. The things I said about you were wrong. I was jealous of how easily everything seemed to come to you while I struggled. It was easier to blame you than to face my own failures. I'm not asking for forgiveness or financial help. I just wanted you to know that I'm trying to change. Tom." I sat with this letter for days, unsure how to respond. Eventually, I sent him a copy of Personal Finance for Beginners, the same book I'd checked out from the library as a teenager, with a simple note, "This helped me. Maybe it will help you too." It wasn't reconciliation, but it was acknowledgement, a small step toward something new, if not a return to what was. My relationship with Ryan blossomed in the space created by healthier boundaries. We married in a small ceremony in Central Park, surrounded by friends who knew our whole story and still chose to stand with us. My family wasn't present, but their absence felt less like a wound and more like a choice that protected the joy of the day. Professionally, I found a new dimension to my work. Beyond helping wealthy clients grow their portfolios, I started a pro bono financial literacy program for young adults from disadvantaged backgrounds. Teaching these eager students the basics of budgeting, credit, and investing healed something in me, transforming painful lessons from my past into stepping stones for others. When the pandemic hit, forcing everyone to reevaluate priorities, I received another email from my father, more substantial this time. "Katie, these uncertain times have made me think about what truly matters. Your mother and I aren't getting any younger. We've been making the loan payments, but I know money can't repair what we broke. I've been seeing a counselor, can you believe it? Your old man in therapy. He's helping me understand how our financial problems weren't just about money, but about pride and control. I didn't want to admit that my college-aged daughter understood something I couldn't master after decades of adulthood. It was easier to resent your help than to be grateful for it. I don't expect this to change anything between us. I just wanted you to know that at least one of your parents is trying to understand what went wrong. With love, if you'll accept it, Dad." This email arrived on my 31st birthday. A coincidence that felt meaningful. I cried while reading it, not from pain, but from recognition. For the first time, my father was acknowledging the emotional reality beneath our financial conflicts. My response was careful, but open. "Dad, thank you for your email. It means a lot to hear that you're working to understand what happened between us. I'm on a similar journey. I'm not ready for family holidays or regular calls, but I would be open to meeting for coffee next time I'm in Michigan. Just us. Take care, Kate." That coffee hasn't happened yet. The pandemic and geographical distance creating practical barriers. But the possibility exists now, a door slightly ajar. My mother remains more distant. The last I heard, she still maintains that I betrayed the family by enforcing financial boundaries. That's okay. I've learned that not every relationship can be salvaged, and some are healthier when maintained at a distance. The most profound change has been internal. I no longer feel responsible for fixing other people's financial problems. Not my family's, not friends, not even clients, beyond providing professional guidance. I can empathize without absorbing their stress advice, without attaching my worth to whether they follow through. Ryan and I are expecting our first child in the spring, a daughter. As we prepare for her arrival, we talk often about the financial values we want to instill: responsibility without anxiety, generosity without exploitation, boundaries without guilt. Will my parents be part of her life? That remains an open question. The door isn't locked anymore, but anyone who enters will need to respect the new terms of engagement: mutual respect, honesty, and appropriate boundaries. The $24,000 that sparked this painful separation has been nearly repaid now. Sometimes I wonder what will happen when the final payment arrives. Will it mark the end of a chapter or the beginning of a new one? Either way, I'm at peace with the outcome. The most valuable thing I've gained through this ordeal wasn't the money returned, but the understanding that love without respect isn't really love at all. True family, whether blood or chosen, lifts you up rather than drains you dry. They celebrate your boundaries rather than punish you for having them. Have you ever had to make the difficult choice between peace and family, between self-respect and maintaining relationships? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments. And if you found this journey helpful, please like and subscribe for more conversations about financial boundaries and family dynamics. Remember to share this video with anyone who might be struggling with similar challenges. Thank you for being part of this healing journey with me.